To say that the average Canadian is experiencing 8.1% probably means that there's actually nobody who's experiencing 8.1%.
Inflation in Canada has hit 8.1%, higher than at any time since 1983. But that rise in costs is not hitting everything everywhere at the same rate. Depending on what you're buying, you could be seeing costs increase much more than 8.1%.
If you are highly reliant on your car, if you buy a lot of imported foods, if you live in a very high rent area, then your personal inflation rate is probably double digits. If you walk everywhere, if you own your own home, and if you're very, very careful about what foods you buy and from where, it's entirely possible that you might not really be experiencing any inflation.
Moshe Lander at Concordia University says earlier calls that inflation would be transitory weren't wrong. Those who work in money markets look at the economy in extremely long terms and can consider periods of up to a year or longer transitory.
The Bank of Canada said last week that by the end of 23, we should expect inflation back down to the upper limit that the Bank of Canada finds tolerable of 3%. And by early 24, we should see it back to 2%, which is the mid-range of the Bank of Canada's number and the number that they've delivered to us for the better part of the last 30 years. So, in the grand scheme of things, 18 months worth of high inflation by Canadian standards is rather transitory in nature.
The control of inflation through monetary policy and fiscal policy is more like trying to cook on your barbecue than on your induction stove. It's always a little bit hit and miss.
David Johnson is a retired economics professor. He says, in hindsight, it's fair to say the federal government could have ended COVID relief programs sooner, and the Bank of Canada could have raised rates sooner. But he adds the inflation figure is being driven by large increases in very specific commodities: petroleum, staple foods, and housing.
House prices rises over the last 3 years continue to contribute. So we need 3 years of falling house prices to undo some of that stuff. Will we get that? I don't think it's zero probability.
In Ottawa, Shaoli Lee, City News.